Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Roy Howitt from Medland, Spain, and welcome to the third in our series of webinars where we're going to look at three topics today: new build versus resale, the after sales service, and as importantly, mortgages. So I'm delighted to be joined by our Meet the Team member today, Alex, and also Katherine from Mortgages Direct, who actually is one of the founders of Mortgages Direct originally. A couple of bits of housekeeping before we start. On the screen there, you'll see a Q&A button. If you'd like to ask any questions during the presentations, we will try our best to answer them all for you. If we don't answer them during the presentation itself, then we'll come back to you with any answers, as they'll all be recorded and we have the email addresses. Secondly, all we ask is at the end of the presentation, please, if you could complete the very simple questionnaire form that we produced. We're interested in any other topics, etc., that you may be interested in us covering. We are going to be covering things like Brexit and relocation and tax and various other things in the next series running through November. But I would ask you in this particular presentation that we don't go too near those at the moment, because we can go down a rabbit hole. So that's me for the introduction. I want to start out by a couple of quick things introducing my colleague, Alex. Alex, you were born in Spain. Whereabouts? Where'd you come from originally?
Hi, Roy.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, we only see each other on these video calls, don't we? You know, so rarely do we go into the office these days.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all remote these days.
I sometimes miss you. Well, I was born in Elche. It's the second biggest city in Alicante province, which is called the Palm Trees City. But I really was, I have been most of my years living in Crevillente, which is next town to Elche, little town.
City of the carpet.
Yeah,
that's right, where the rugs and everything come from, the wholesalers. I remember.
Correct.
Yes, I know a little bit about the area after 17 years here, Alex, only a little bit. But also Elche, they do all the white palms for Easter, don't they? That's what they're famous for, creating the city of the palms, but all the white palm trees as well come out of there, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. They're famous for it.
Yeah, I like the train ride. I want to still do it, but I remember when I visited Elche, I went round on a mini train thing that took you all the way around the town and then climbed up to the top of the cathedral in the centre of town itself.
Good views from them.
Nice day trip, Elche, actually. So moving on from that, I mean, say that your role at Medland is after sales. So you look after the clients once basically I've sold them something, don't you?
Pardon?
Said you look after the clients once I've sold them something.
Yeah, that's what I used to do.
But you've done that for a while, haven't you? Not just with Medland, but didn't you also work for one of the developers?
Yeah, well, I have a large experience doing the after sales in this market. Mm-hmm. So I was working for a big developer in the area.
Yeah.
And that gave me a big experience about how to do the after sales with the clients. Even I'm now at the other side, at the real estate side, I'm still at the side of the client. So
yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? After sales is very much we're looking after the interests of the client, not of the developer.
Right.
Because I'm sure that you almost fight.
Sometimes it could be, yeah.
You know, you'll come up with a list of things that we want to get done for the client, and they'll take that list presumably and then try and reduce it as much as possible.
We used to be friendly with them because we need a good relationship anyway with developers and builders. We want their help, so we look for the best way to get it.
I know your English is very good. Have you ever worked in England or Ireland? Have you ever?
Well, when I finished my studies, I decided I needed to go to an English-speaking country.
Yeah.
To get a proper levels to use it there for working. So I moved to Ireland for 3 months, and I was there just looking for a job, looking for a house. So in that time, I after a while I started to work at the Apple factory in Cork.
Oh yeah, I've visited there. I've been there.
Yeah. For a while, it was 1.5 months, but I profited the time to speak as much as I could. So
that's good. Okay, let's move on to Katherine, who I know is sitting in the glorious city. I didn't realise, Katherine, that you're actually living in the city of Valencia, right in the main square there.
Yeah,
it's quite
right
amazing.
in the old town. Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah. So how long have you been in Spain?
15 years now, Roy. The old story came for 1 year, and
Yeah.
15 years later, still here, and got no intentions of going. So very happy here.
Yeah, you and me both. I've done 17 years now, so I'm slightly longer. So why form the company? I mean, so what you've been formed since what, 2006? Is it Mortgage Direct started?
Yeah, we set up in 2006. Like I say, we only came for a year. We didn't intend to stay here or set up a business. And we weren't quite ready to go back to our previous jobs. I was an IFA in the UK, and Kevin, my business partner, he was working for a firm of actuaries. We weren't quite ready to go back yet. And we kept getting asked by people we came across, we believe you've got a finance background. Can you help us get a mortgage? We're finding that foreigners just didn't know where to start with the local banks, with the language. And we thought, hold on a minute, there's an opportunity here. There didn't seem to be a lot of competition. And we set up Mortgage Direct. Initially, we were just doing all face-to-face advice because that was our background in the UK. But we soon realized we weren't meeting any of our clients because you pick up the phone straight away, you know, you're doing everything via email. And then we branched out all over Spain. And yes, and we're now a team of 14, 9 active advisors. And yes, like I say, we cover all of Spain, Costa Blanca, and the areas that you sell your properties, Roy.
And the advisors are not based in an office as such. I know, for example, Simon Staples, who we deal with, I believe lives in Denia at the moment. But they are based throughout Spain, which I think is great because they actually get to be closer, certainly to us as an agent and presumably to the clients as well.
No, definitely. We're dotted all over the place. So right from Barcelona, right down to Marbella. We've even got an advisor in the UK. We fall under the FCA umbrella. You'll find us on the FCA register. But no, we offer a virtual service, and we have done from day one. So we're very, very efficient. And no, it works well. And like you say, the fact we're dotted around, it's the advisors know all the areas.
And I'm assuming you can do finance in Spain and in the UK. So you can do equity release stuff in the UK as well?
Yes, we can.
It's nice to be able to come to one company, and we'll talk a little bit more as we go through in terms of the actual rates and services and everything. How's it been during the pandemic? How busy have you been?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and surprisingly, we've been very busy. In fact, busier than before the pandemic. We've seen a slight drop off the last sort of 6 weeks. A bit too soon to tell, but yeah, we've been like 35% busier in the last previous 3 months. We're putting it down to a lot of cash buyers still wanting to buy in Spain, with mortgage borrowing being so cheap. And because of the uncertainty of the future markets, people still want to buy in Spain, but they're thinking, hold on, let's hold on to our cash and let's take out a mortgage. Rates are cheap. The costs are mainly borne by the bank. And so it's been a great opportunity for us, in fact.
Yeah, I think most of the frustration for us is obviously most of the agents have seen big jump in inquiries because people are sitting in front of their screens and clicking.
Yeah.
But like most people, will be the first one to admit, and as I come to my section in this, we're just not seeing the volume of people on the ground at the moment, which is a little frustrating when everybody's saying, I want to come, I want to come, I want to come. But I think we need to emphasize, certainly in the area that we all live in, the incidences of the pandemic are some of the lowest in Spain at the moment.
Yeah.
Last night, they introduced some new regulations about curfews. Now, I know it applies to all three of us here. We're not allowed to go out after midnight until 6 a.m. And I was saying to Alex before we started, well, that really doesn't bother me because the number of times I go out after midnight and they're at 6 a.m. really can't count them, and things are one hand each year. But I think the point we'll make later on is people can travel, and I see that there are rumours of having travel corridors to the Valencia region, and also reducing the quarantine time in the UK down to 7 days. If people can travel at the moment, there are some really good bargains out there as far as properties are concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the main body of the presentation. For this particular webinar, we're not focusing on properties, the same as when we do Brexit and the other topics. If you want to look at properties, go to our website, medlandspain.co.uk. This presentation is talking about buying a property, what properties are available, what terms are available, and so primarily the differences between a new build property and a second-hand property. Moving swiftly on. Just 1 second while I click the right thing. There we go. So we're going to cover 3 topics today. The first is new build versus resale and the general condition of the market. Then we'll go into the mortgages, and last but not least, we'll cover the after-sale service that we're able to offer, which in terms of new build properties is absolutely vital to the process. Little bit about Medland, get the commercial over and done with. We were formed back in 2013, and we cover 11 countries currently with 46 employees out of 2 offices, 1 in Costa Blanca North and 1 in Costa Blanca South. We cover around about 350 kilometres of coastline going from Aguilas in the south through to the other side of Denia in the north, where there are something in excess of 800 new build developments. We're a specialist new build. In fact, we're the largest specialist seller of new build properties on the costas of Costa Blanca and Costa Calida. And we are a Spanish-based company with staff with many, many years of experience. And I include myself in that number in terms of experience in the market. There's our building, not very low key, as Medland does most things like. We like our logos, we like our colours, we have 2 custom built buildings now. And this is the coverage. So again, as I mentioned earlier on, Costa Blanca, Costa Calida, and more specifically the 350 odd kilometres that I spoke about earlier on. The green dots on here are to do with the golf courses, because anybody that hasn't already seen it, this is the 3rd webinar. The previous 2 were looking at buying on a golf course and the Costa Blanca South region specifically. We will cover the north, and the next one is talking about the Costa Calida. Fact is, Spain still has the attraction to the buyers. The Costa Blanca, Costa Calida area has seen a massive increase over the years, and even during the pandemic, we've seen a number of new projects that have been announced. The demand, although it's dropped off with people not visiting, hasn't changed. There's some significant new projects been announced over the last 2 months. And of course, the airport has made a difference. The ability to fly into 2 locations now from the UK and from the rest of Europe has increased the access to the area. The holiday market, again, is one that is attractive for investors. When we look through at the mortgage rates later on, you'll see that the rate at which you can buy a property as an investor and the rental return you can get is extremely good at the moment. And the real demand we've been seeing, or the increase in demand most recently, have been people that have been looking to buy before Brexit, getting their residency in place. But the fact is that the biggest percentage of buyers of new build properties are not English people. They tend to be the Scandinavians, the Belgians, etc., who prefer sometimes the cleaner lines and the modern design. It isn't always what the English require. They often want to look at the more traditional design, shall we say. That is changing. Fact is that at the moment, these are the effects on the market from the COVID-19 have been extreme. We're not going to ignore them. They're not going to go away anytime soon. But we are experiencing some of the lowest infection rates in Spain. And even with the real height of the infections, the builders didn't stop. They didn't stop building. They carried on as usual. There wasn't a shutdown of the building industry. I think it was about 4 or 5 days when they closed down. And we didn't stop delivering properties. We were still completing on properties. The notaries were still open. The mortgage companies were still working. It really was business as usual. But more recently, what's been happening is that the agents have done a lot more changes to the way they're now marketing. We've seen a dramatic increase in virtual tours. We're doing it. We'll get a phone, we'll get a camera, we'll get a customer online on Facebook or WhatsApp or another particular way and walk them through the property. And the introduction of COVID contracts is also something new. Many builders now will offer a refundable deposit-based contract where you can reserve a particular property and subsequently wait till you come over, and then if that property doesn't fit, they'll refund your deposit. Please be careful, however, because there are some agents out there and some builders out there who are refunding everything but 10%. So make sure if you do enter into a COVID contract, you first and foremost pass it under the nose of a lawyer before you sign anything or agree anything. The low rent, the mortgages are in plentiful supply at the moment. We'll go on to talk about rates and things later on, but there's plenty of lending out there for people that want to buy. And we haven't seen the prices crash. We've seen a change in the way that developers are marketing, where they're including many, many more extras with the properties now. Things like furniture and air conditioning and pools and other things that weren't necessarily part of the original package. And yes, there are some builders that are discounting. It's something 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, I would never have said that there would be any discounts on new build property. But a couple of my recent properties I've sold, they have achieved a reasonably good level of discount. So therefore, for people that are willing to travel, there are some good bargains out there. And because people haven't been traveling, many, many more key ready offerings in the new build market, many, many more completed properties or properties that are about to complete. When I advise clients, and you know, some of you may have already seen me presenting on the Place in the Sun at the exhibitions, on the hub, and also online with them, I tend to apply the what, why, where, and how scenario. This is very simple logic. The key aspect of any property buying is always going to be the location. It's always going to be going into an area and finding an area that you like, that you feel comfortable with, and then subsequently looking for a property. But it's affected by why you're buying. It's affected by what you're buying. It's affected by how close you want to be to the beach or to facilities, and of course your budget. Please remember, when you're looking at any property prices, you've got to add around about 14% onto any price that you see advertised. Also, timescales. You know, a lot of the business I've been doing recently have been people that want to move here prior to Brexit. They want to get their residency in place. That affects the availability of the property. Now, it is also fair that you can rent a property and qualify for residency as well. But the number of the ones I've done recently, they wanted a quick completion, which we've managed to achieve. Be careful with pricing, because certainly in the new build market, not every developer or every agent, necessarily keeps the pricing up to date with what's really available out there on the market. We regularly get queries saying, how come it is that our price is X amount more than the agent up the road? It's because our prices reflect the true availability of the property, not the initial phase pricing. And if you do agree a price of a viewing, make sure you know in advance what you're going to view. There's too many situations where somebody agrees to come out and look maybe at a resale property at a particularly attractive rate, where unfortunately when you arrive, that property is no longer available. And the last thing is, if you don't want modern, if you don't want contemporary design, if you don't want the benefits associated with insulation, then you're really not right for a new build property. One of the fears that people have had in the past is whether the property actually gets built. What happens if I pay my money and that particular developer goes into receivership? Well, the law changed quite dramatically, and the law, since I've been selling properties in Spain, has changed quite dramatically. That the law now requires builders to issue an independent bank guarantee for all of the payments that they receive. And therefore, your money is safe. And all contracts must contain completion dates, and completion is only a completion when all of the final paperwork is issued by the town hall. Katherine, I'm right in saying that you actually can't get a mortgage without all the paperwork being in place, things like the certificate of habitation.
Yes.
Basically,
yeah, we can do an initial application to sort of get it like pre-approved, and we can do that a year or even 2 years beforehand. But yes, you're correct. To get the actual official mortgage offer, we have to wait till we have those documents.
Not just the offer, also the completion at the notary. I understand they cannot complete on a property that doesn't have a certificate of habitation business.
Yes, that's correct.
So the contract must include the specifics of the property and the facilities, and anything that is put into the marketing materials has to be part of the contract. We've gone away from the old days where they would advertise a golf resort with, you know, a golf course and a clubhouse and a hotel. Nowadays, if it's in the marketing materials, it has to be delivered as part of the overall contract. And our advice always stands: get the contracts reviewed independently by a lawyer prior to any stage payments, and pay deposits to the lawyer. That's the way we always work with clients. And then the lawyer can check the contracts before transferring the payments. And we check, when we can move on to after sales a bit later in this presentation, we are the guys that are going to check whether the milestone in terms of the stage payment has been achieved on that particular building. It could be that the next payment is due 3 months, 6 months. It could be based on something as simple as the second fixings being done, the kitchen being in place, the roof being on. It varies by contract, but that becomes part of what we work jointly with you and also with the lawyer and the mortgage company. There are many advantages on new build properties, the significant one being the way that they're constructed in terms of insulation. It's fair to say that on the newer build properties these days, in an apartment block, for example, if you have a noisy neighbour, you will not hear them in the same way as you would do on the older designs. They insulate the properties correctly. They build in a different way now on concrete structures and then insulate floors, ceilings and walls. Because they build in that way, it's very easy to change in the off-plan stage the particular design, etc. of that property. So we now talk in terms of an EPC, which is the Energy Performance Certification across the whole of Europe, as typically being a B standard in a newer property. In an older property, which they have to declare as part of the sales process, you will find they will come in at an F and a G. A huge difference. The property is designed as much to keep the heat of the day out as they are to keep the heat in, with thermoblock type windows and films on the windows and all sorts of different things. The other advantage is if you buy off plan, it's your property. You design it. You decide what tiling you want, what kitchen units you want. And many of the newer properties and facility and developments nowadays are incorporating facilities like gyms, indoor and outdoor pools. Other things that also make the properties a lot more rentable. If you're looking at investment property and looking to rent out and get a longer yield or a higher return in terms of the price that you can charge, it's the facilities and location that will often dictate this. As with the UK, in any new build property, you get a 10-year guarantee, which is independent of the builder. Now, this is not something that the builder's not around anymore, you can't exercise. It's a Swiss Re type insurance policy. And unusually, you get 2 years on snagging and also on things like your white goods, 5 years on the compressor and the air conditioning unit. People think often that a second-hand property is going to be cheaper. Often you'll buy a second-hand property that comes fully furnished, perhaps. But you've no guarantee on how long the air conditioning unit has been in there, or the fridge has been used, or various other things. So by the time often you stripped everything out and started again, it still can be cost-effective to invest in a new build property. Even with things like the community fees associated with these properties, because you're looking at artificial grass, because you're looking at more modern pools and lighting, you're looking at LED, the running costs for the community can be far less than an older established community. And the majority of the apartments we look at, for example, we look at something like between 30 and 60 euros a month for your community fees. If you look through the rental sites, you will find that the yield, the income, the percentage that you can charge for the newly designed properties tends to be higher than the traditional properties. Any difference between the resale property pricing and the new build property pricing, now that there are discounts out there, is narrowing. There is stock out there. People obviously are not silly. They've built the properties. They're looking to move those properties on. I mentioned earlier on the running fees. It's because, as I say, the older properties tend to be more expensive to run. Nowadays, we use things, for example, like aerothermic boilers in properties. This is a way of using the outside air to heat the water in the systems. We use inverter type air conditioning units, LED lighting. There's a whole range of energy saving things that they now incorporate as standard in a new build property. And with the structure, if you want to change one of the bathrooms into a dressing room or add a second ensuite or increase the size of the lounge, it's easier to do based on the pillar design, the concrete pillar design of these types of things. There's a much longer list than this. I'm not going to go through at the moment. And really, it's a case of looking at our website and looking at the prices, but first and foremost, identifying the right location for the particular type of property and lifestyle that you're looking for. Okay, that's me done on the comparisons. I'm going to move across to Katherine now. Katherine, tell us about Mortgage Direct.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, we're a team of 14 now, 9 active advisors, but we're totally independent. So we work with all the banks that lend in Spain, banks outside of Spain, and also more so nowadays, private banks, bespoke banks. So, you know, we offer the whole of market to any client looking to buy in Spain. All our advisors are qualified, and recently we've just been given the Bank of Spain license, We're very proud to have that, and the Bank of Spain have given us a list, and we're aware that we're one of only a few international brokers to have that license. And you could say, what does that mean? What does that mean to the client? Basically, it means that we can give full advice. A lot of our competitors who don't have the license, they can introduce a client to a bank, but they can't be seen to be given any advice. They can't have any feedback. They can't basically look after the client. So it's a huge thing for us. And we got it in July this year, after a year of treacherous reports and everything else trying to get it, but we've got it. So, we're very pleased to have that. Yes, we set it up in Valencia, but as mentioned earlier, we cover all of Spain. And yes, so it's we keep growing year on year, even through the years of the crisis, this pandemic. So we're in a good position.
How many mortgages did you think you've processed since you started? Oh, you've got a counter on your website, haven't you? Didn't I see a counter on your website? So, Roy. You've got
your card there. I've got no idea, but all I can say is that all the banks tell us we give them the most business compared to any other broker. So it's a lot.
And how many lenders on your panel at the moment?
Yeah, good question. Like I say, we work with all the lenders, and there's probably 20 on there. At any one time, we're probably working with 8, on a regular basis. And
they have special offers occasionally. They do come up, I know, with deals on mortgage rates and bits and pieces, but there aren't things anymore like 100% mortgages in Spain, are there?
No, and to be honest, there haven't really been. You only get 100% on like repossessed properties. The properties the banks can't get rid of, so they're offering these attractive, mortgage conditions. But no, so it's always been 70%. You used to have to self-cert mortgages where clients didn't used to have to declare any income, but that went, when the crisis arrived.
What about buy-to-let? Do I have to have a different mortgage if I want to let my property out?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're often asked by clients, can I get a buy-to-let mortgage? In that, can the future income yield from the property be used for the affordability to get a mortgage? And the answer is no. There was one bank that was doing it about 5 years ago. They called it a buy-to-let mortgage, but it was still based on a client's affordability, not on the future potential rent. Some banks don't like you renting out the property. They see it as a higher risk because you're not looking after it yourself personally. And some banks reduce the borrowing amount by 10%, possibly 20%. But we know which banks don't penalise clients if they want to rent it out.
So there is no such thing. You don't have, unlike the UK, then you don't have to take out a special mortgage if you want to rent your property out.
No. And
the rates are therefore normal. Because again, the unusual thing in Spain, of course, is there's no such thing as leasehold. All properties, even apartments, are freehold in Spain. Yeah. People, again, sometimes struggle to grasp the concept of.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially when you're not used to it. But no, that's how it is.
Spain work in a different way with mortgages. They work on the basis of affordability rather than income, don't they?
Yes, that's correct. A general rule of thumb is that the banks take 1/3 of your net income, and that can be attributed to the new Spanish mortgage. And you have to put in that figure as well, your existing debts, significant monthly expenses. For example, if you have a client who's earning £3,000 net per month, 1/3 of that is £1,000, that's their budget. And then the banks will take off any commitments that they've got. And this doesn't include like utility bills, literally things that you'll find on a UK Experian report, for example. So if they've got a UK mortgage of say £400 per month, that leaves a budget of £600, which can be put towards a Spanish mortgage. So as long as that Spanish mortgage doesn't go above £600, and that's their budget.
I know that one agent in particular, I'm not going to say who, was doing most of their business with Sabadell, for example. Mm-hmm. I know Sabadell reduced their ratio quite dramatically.
They have. For all British clients, they've reduced their ratio to 20%, and they've also reduced the loan to value to 60%. And it has a huge impact on, especially on UK clients, because most people want to borrow, and it's not very generous in Spain anyway, 1/3 of your net income. It's not like the UK where it's say 5 times your gross income. So it's very conservative anyway. And when it's reduced to 20%, it doesn't give many clients, a lot of scope to borrow. So fortunately, we know which banks base the debt to income ratio on say 35%.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advantages I find from dealing with you guys is you'll look at the individual case of the person and then advise which route to take without actually charging them or anything. It's only when So you've reached the offer stage that there's a fee involved. And
No, that's
it's
right.
knowing.
Sorry, Roy.
All right, so it's knowing who to go to, isn't it, half the trick?
No, definitely. And one thing I was going to say is that one bank will be totally suitable for one client and totally inappropriate for another client. So I think that's the most important point to get across.
And I'd say I've had some horror stories personally when I've walked people. I've had people go to the bank locally. One example I always use is sitting in a particular bank and them asking the client to pay full term insurance on the entire mortgage, for example, life insurance. We'll come on that in a second. I'm sure that's one of the.
Yeah, no, it's a hot topic.
so percentages. This again, regularly this gets confusing for people. Because in Spain, they don't finance the buying fees, do they? So people think if they're getting 70%, for example, they only need 30% to buy the property.
Yes.
That isn't the case, is it, in the case of Spain?
No, that's totally correct. So it's
50 to 55%.
Yeah, the borrowing's actually based on the purchase price or the valuation, whichever's the lower. And as you quite correctly stated, it doesn't include the fees, which are usually around 14% of the price. And one thing you've got on this presentation, which is an important point, for loans below 100,000 euros, the maximum is 60%. So we're doing a lot of mortgages for 60% and for 70%, but the loan amount has to be above 100,000.
And they can vary the rates, the loan to value, depending on the personal circumstances. Again, I know situations where they've said, we can't give you 70%, but in your particular case, we'll give you 60%.
Yeah, no, that's true. Each bank, the rates can vary. So it's not like the UK where you can actually go online and look at Halifax, or I'm not sure what they're called now, and see their rates, and it'll be the same for every single client. In Spain, it's very different. It varies within the branches and also depending on the client's profiles. Some banks insist on life cover, but we're aware of those banks that don't. A lot of clients don't want the life cover. They want to keep the costs as low as possible. So that's quite an important point. Most banks, the term is to age 75. We're aware of one bank that we work with that do to age 80, but it's on a case-by-case basis. So I would assume that the mortgage has to be paid off by 75. And one important point on that is that the banks, if you're in your 50s, for example, and you're taking out a mortgage, they will look at what point you're at age 67 in terms of your pension, what you've set up in terms of a pension. They won't just assume, right, from 50 to 75, we'll do a 25-year term. If you haven't got a suitable pension in place and that they can see that there's no, sort of guaranteed pension set up, then they will run the mortgage often to age 67. So it'd be a shorter term, and that can affect the affordability. But again, we know which banks are more flexible than others, and how to approach it the right way.
Got a question here from Elaine, and what Elaine is saying, she's heard that 70% isn't around anymore, that it's now 60%. That isn't the case. There are still lenders offering 70%.
Yes, there are. So by all means, get in contact, and we'll see if we can help there.
Yeah, this is the point to make about this particular presentation, is we're not just insisting, it's not a case of you have to buy a property from Medland to use this company. They are a general mortgage broker that we know and we trust. And as I say, if you have a purchase elsewhere, by all means contact them. Their details will be up at the end for a quotation and details on their particular mortgages. Yeah. Settlement costs.
Yes.
On mortgages in Spain.
The costs, I believe, are a lot cheaper than what we're used to in the UK. For variable rate mortgages, the law is that it can't be, the maximum is 0.5% in the first 5 years of what's redeemed, and after that it's 0.25%. Some banks are offering a 0% redemption penalty, which is attractive, and with fixed rate products, the maximum is 2% in the first 10 years, and then it's 1.5% thereafter. So those are the redemption penalties you could expect. So
really different from the UK then?
Yes.
Really, as I say, normally in the UK, they'd be much higher than that. Can you pay lump sums off as well in a year on the mortgages?
Yes, you can. Some banks prefer it that you just do it, once it's reached to say 10,000, for example. I'm not sure what the situation is now, but in the past you used to have to go to the notary if you were paying off a lump sum. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore, but certainly the banks usually prefer it if you're going to do, say, 10,000, in one single transaction, rather than that they don't allow you to say overpay by 500 a month or 1,000 a month. So you'd wait for it to get to a certain amount. Usually, and then make the payment.
And I'm right in thinking a lump sum payment will affect your monthly repayments immediately, because it's the amount you owe plus Euribor, isn't it? The way they calculate it is the real interest, the real live interest rate on the amount that you owe.
Yeah, that's correct.
I know that you also, something that we've been involved in, offer mortgages on plots of land and people that are going to build their own properties.
Yes. Yeah, we actually do a lot of what we call plot and build mortgages. Usually the client buys the land outright, although it is possible to mortgage the land. And then the bank will lend, for example, 60% of the construction costs, and they'll do it in stages. So once you've got the foundations in, usually there'll be a stage payment then from the bank, and then there may be 3 or 4 payments, throughout the build.
Okay. And we mentioned earlier on, just so people know, you actually cannot get a mortgage confirmed on an off-plan property. You'll get what we call a mortgage, an agreement in principle, won't you? Which lasts, is it 6 months?
Yeah, 3 months, Roy.
3 months. There we go. I'm glad you're there.
Decision in principles don't really exist like they do in the UK, but the banks are preparing quotes. We can get like approval in principles, and whenever we speak with clients in the first instance, we provide our own quotes, and then we can submit a formal application to the bank to get an approval in principle. And usually, if a client's circumstances haven't changed from when they've had that approval in principle to when the property is completed, which could be a year, 2 years, in advance, then it's likely that the mortgage would definitely go through.
2 more questions here for you. Okay. The first one is from Stuart Martin. He's asking if they only wanted a very small amount. Let's say the property is 230,000 euros, but they only wanted to loan 20,000 euros. Would that be possible?
Yeah. Hi, Stuart. Thanks for the question. The minimum is 50,000. That's with ourselves. You may be able to get it with a local bank. The banking contacts that we've got, anything below 50,000. And also you have to look at, is it worthwhile for the client as well? Often if it's 20,000, it may be better to get an overdraft facility or a loan with your own bank. But when it's anything below 50,000, it would usually be the local bank or speak to your own bank at home.
And I've got a question here for Janice that I'll answer. The difference in buying on a mortgage is probably less than 1% on top. So for example, if you were buying a property at £200,000, you can work on 13% roughly on top for your buying fees. And that normally includes everything. So that will include your notary fees and also your legal fees and your stamp duty if you're buying a new property. So as I say, if you work on that 13%, one thing they did in Spain recently was they scrapped, or they made the bank pay, I believe, the stamp duty on the mortgage transaction. Made a big difference, didn't it, Catherine, to the amount of money it charges?
Yeah, they also paid the notary fees, the bank's management fees, so which they used to pass on to the client. So the costs are significantly less than what they used to be, about 2% less, I believe.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it brings the cost down to very close to what you would pay just buying cash. That's the fact of the matter. Whereas if you were buying on a mortgage previously, you might put 2 or 3% on top just in fees. That isn't the case anymore.
Yeah.
So what we've done is prepared a couple of examples here. This is a real property in Villamartin. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, what we call bungalow. A bungalow in Spain, believe it or not, is an apartment downstairs with a garden, the top floor with the Resale area. In this particular property, the reference number is on the screen, looks across onto the Salt Lakes part of the Eca. And what we've done is we've done one on a fixed rate mortgage and one on a variable, I believe, Catherine, but just average. So we just sort of done average rates, haven't we? Because again, the rates will vary depending upon people's personal circumstances. Also, don't the rates vary depending on what services you take from the bank as well?
Yes, it does. With some banks, they're even asking you to take out fire alarms to get your rate down, life cover. Most banks want home insurance anyway. Some banks investments, but I don't think to this date we've ever had a client who's wanted to invest, with the bank to get a lower rate. So yeah, so that does happen.
I know Sabadell keep pestering me for their alarm system at the moment because I've got a mortgage with them, and you have to explain I've got one already, but they do count us quite hard at the moment, obviously, for their services. Yeah. So we've worked here on a 70% loan to value, Catherine, on this one, €105,000 mortgage.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's 45k is the deposit that's generated. So the 45k here is the 30%, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
€21,000 here is the fees associated with it, which means they would need €66,000 of their own money to buy the property, which is valued at €150,000.
Yeah.
So that's certainly not 30%, is it? It's more, what the point we were making earlier on, it's more than 30% that they've got to raise from their own funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right.
In this case, we're looking at a 25-year term, straightforward repayment mortgage of approximately €465 a month. Remember, on a property like this, the only other cost you have associated with it are your community fee, which in the case of this one is €30 a month, your rates, and again on this one in Villa Martin, that will be around about €300 a year. And I say €300 a year, not €300 a month, like in the UK. And if you're not a resident, your non-residence tax, which is a percentage of the value, again about €300 a year. So for less than €1,000 a year, you've got your running costs, and then you've got your mortgage payments on top of it. In terms of rental, it's very easy in this area potentially to cover those mortgage costs. Let's move on to an example of a villa. This villa is our reference 1870389. It's a villa which is based in the Casada area, where we have a special bundle on it at the moment of €250,000. Again, working on 70%, you would need €75,000, which is the 30% deposit, and another €35,000 to make up your taxes and fees. So the deposit that you would require on this property is €110,000. Oh, the previous one was fixed rate, wasn't it? Sorry, Catherine, I just realised this is the variable one. The one before was 2.4% fixed. So apologies for that. So that's what I've done. So here we're looking at a variable rate based on Euribor, 2.2. That's an average rate though, isn't it? There are rates out there below that and above that, depending on circumstances.
Yeah, it totally depends on the profile of the client, Roy, and also the bank. And also some banks take into account the minus Euribor, some don't. So it does vary, but it's a good figure to use, 2.2. Yeah,
it's a midway figure for us, isn't it? It's one that is pretty standard. Again, we've taken a 25-year term, and you can see the monthly repayments on that property would be €758 a month. See before we move on if we've got any more questions. Loan mortgage we've done. Would you appoint a Spanish solicitor? Janice, easy answer to that, yes. There's a very good source of, we work on the basis that we have a panel of lawyers. We have a number of lawyers that I'm not saying we work with, but that are registered with the British Council. If you go to the British Council in Alicante, you'll find a registry of lawyers. We would always recommend that you go to a lawyer within the geography of the property that you're buying. So they're there not just to deal with your transaction, but anything else that is included and goes, any other transaction that you have with a property, you can pop in their office if you've got a particular demand or something you don't understand. And the prices that I talk about are with all the legal fees as well. So when we talk about the 14%, that covers everything. Are there any hidden charges? No, there aren't. That's it. When we talk about the buying fees, that includes absolutely everything. So, process. If you're coming to Spain, we would always recommend, because there's no obligation, that you talk to, if you're going to get finance, talk to the mortgage broker first. Find out what sort of money you have available and what sort of mortgage you could get. You're always going to be in a much stronger position if you come to Spain and your finances are sorted out. It's a fair statement, isn't it, Catherine?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we always recommend clients to come to us first. It may be that your budget's higher than what you thought it would be, or lower. You know, we look at your income details, look at the cash deposits you've got available, and then you can confidently come to Spain and say, right, this is my budget. These are the types of, you know, property prices I can be looking at.
I think the nicest thing is, in fairness to your company and the dealings we've had with you, you've always been realistic clients. You've always, it's a case that the money isn't there, the lending isn't there, it's not possible. You're not stringing people along. You're actually being very upfront with them and saying, in this particular case, we can't help you. You need more savings. You need to, and I know, sell a UK property, or you know, there are various ways that I know that you can advise the client to make the mortgages work.
No, definitely. And it's a good point. So we'll see a profile of a client, and it might be that they just paid off this one loan, which might just have a couple of €1,000 outstanding. It's totally made their affordability calculations work to get the type of price property they want. So, we will give advice on that as well.
And I think also the other thing was interesting is I know that banks don't like online gambling going through the bank accounts. Somebody was telling me the other day.
I haven't come across that one, but I wouldn't be.
Wow. I think somebody mentioned to me about the fact they see regular transactions for gambling to these casino companies and things. They don't like it very much.
No, probably not.
A question here I've got, and it is, do you need a deposit of a certain amount of money in Spain in order to buy a property in Spain? No, you don't. No, you would basically, you'd only open a bank account at the time, typically, when you've agreed to buy a property. Yes, you'll be transferring money through the payment scheme, and yes, you need a Spanish bank account with standing orders to cover things like your water, your electricity, your mortgage payments, any community fees. That all happens by standing orders. But up front, no, you don't. So, Catherine, somebody makes an application, you look at their loan to ratio, you look at their individual circumstances. What's this we offer a money back guarantee mean?
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, we don't charge for any initial advice. There's no obligation. And once we've sent a mortgage quote and the client then wishes to proceed with us, we charge an administration fee. That's €695. And that's what comes with the money back guarantee. So if we can't achieve the conditions on the quote and the client doesn't want to proceed with anything less, we guarantee to pay that fee back. So it gives clients a lot of peace of mind. The banks like it when they see our cases because we've already pre-qualified them. We're not going to do all the work if we know we've got to pay our fees back. So that's why we are very realistic. We'll only send quotes if we're confident we can achieve those conditions.
So another question here from Claire, which is quite an interesting one. I don't know the answer to this. If I'm Spanish, will it be easier for me to get mortgage approval more quickly?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Yes is the answer, but it depends. If you're in a joint application and one of you is a Spanish fiscal resident, for example, and one's a UK fiscal resident, the banks will look at the borrowing, the maximum borrowing in terms of the UK fiscal resident, and the process is actually slower. The banks, you know, they find it very difficult when they've got different fiscal residences of the applicants. But if you're a Spanish person, yes, the banks much prefer that. Okay,
but you have to be, you said the magic word there, you have to be a Spanish fiscal resident. You have to be based in Spain and earning money in Spain and not hold a Spanish passport, for example.
No.
Living in the UK and just moving to Spain.
Yeah, because we get some inquiries and clients are actually saying, you know, they're Spanish residents, but unless they're actually paying their income tax in Spain and their social security in Spain, they wouldn't be classified as a fiscal resident.
Yeah, and also if you are a fiscal resident, the percentage that you can loan sometimes is higher. It goes up to 80%, doesn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. What's the advantage of you opening the bank account? I'm assuming it's to do with the fact that normally you would suggest, advise, or whatever for rates that you open the bank account with the same bank that's loaning the money. Yeah,
it's with most of the banks, it's compulsory to open that bank account with the bank that you're taking out the mortgage. It's advisable to follow our process because just for example, if we've got a case and it's a difficult case and we're not sure you know, how easy it will be to get approved, often we apply to 2 or maybe even 3 banks simultaneously. So what you don't want to do is open a bank account with one and then we need to open it with a different bank because we've then gone with you know, the bank that's approved the mortgage. Okay, and basically the agreement in principle we discussed, which is getting an offer before you come, and then you really just follow the process through, don't you? I mean, so it's really a case of holding the customer's hand
until they complete.
Yeah, no, we do. One point you've mentioned there is valuations, and with the new regulatory law in Spain, we can now choose our own valuation company as long as it's approved by the Bank of Spain. It might be that so you're aware of a local valuer to the property that knows the area, knows the properties, and we can use them. So that helps in the process as well.
Thank you. I didn't know that, because I know in the past we've had some issues where they send somebody down from Madrid to Finestrat to value a property and they don't know anything about the region.
Yeah.
Okay. And the valuation obviously can't be done until the property is actually almost finished. That's the other point. You can't value a property if it's still in brick. Some people think you can. But don't think anything else. So the process in truth is very simple, isn't it? I mean, so in terms of it's just a standard set of parameters.
Yeah.
It's also important to make the point is you need to send these people information. It's no good saying, I want to buy a property and holding anything back in terms of financial information.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, isn't it? Because I know too often, you get to the 11th hour and suddenly you discover something that hasn't been declared.
No, exactly. The more you tell us, the better, just to save any hiccups, along the line. And everything, of course, is confidential.
Okay, thank you for that. That's absolutely perfect. There's another question here as well. Janice, it's a case of understanding what type of property you want. You've asked about properties in the Murcia area. And it's a case of if you contact us after the event, then we can look at the particular circumstances where you want to be, going back to this location. Properties in Murcia tend to be cheaper than properties in the Alicante region because the land is cheaper. And in new build properties, the price of the property is only ever based primarily on the price of the land. The cost to construct the property is pretty much the same wherever you build it in Spain. Question here from somebody called Mark Treen. Mark, you are looking at a property as a holiday home, rent out the property, you're not using it. Do you have to pay? Absolutely, you have to pay government tax. Not only do you have to pay government tax, you have to actually register the property as a holiday home. And the amount of tax, bad news, will increase when the UK leave Europe. 18%, and I believe it's going up to 21%, and you have to do a quarterly return through an accountant, or if you're clever enough to do it yourself, on the rental income. Typically for a managing agent, you would pay, depending on the type of property, but given that I used to run a property management company many years ago, for somebody to look after the property, if it's typical normal apartment, around about €300 a year, and then you would also pay the managing agent a percentage if they get you any rentals. On top of that, you would pay a clean and a meet and greet. The 300 really is to look after the property, make sure that it's up to date. But you do need a license now, and they do check the properties. Again, the lawyers will be able to help assist you in obtaining that tourist license that you need to be able to rent out a property. They're checking safety, they're checking smoke alarms, they're checking the properties prior to renting. A lot of the rental sites now won't even let you put them on there. Things like Home and Away won't even let you put a property onto there for rental unless you've got the number, which is the registration number from the local authority to rent out a property. I hope that answers that one. When purchasing, will the house be transferred to our children via our will? It's very, very important in Spain that you have a will. The law of succession in Spain is different to the UK. If you don't have a will and something happened to me, for example, if I didn't have a will, the property wouldn't automatically pass to my wife. It would typically pass to the oldest son. Yes, you need to have a will. And the easiest way, I believe, and I'm not a legal expert, and we will have a legal guy on for one of the next sessions, so I'm talking from other knowledge here, is to refer in your Spanish will to the terms of your English will, is the easiest way to do it. Thank you, Catherine. I think that's just about it, and that was very comprehensive. And thank you for your answers. Again, at the end, there will be your contact details, so you'll be able to contact Mortgage Direct directly, as they say. Alex, my after sales guru. Now, Alex is my hero because I go out there and sell these properties to people. And when I've worked for previous organisations, we haven't had after sales, Alex. I had to do it all myself. And you know and I know how much work is involved in it. And you know, and I know, on a new build property, we actually only get paid when the client competes. So
Right.
very, very important that we hold their hand through that process. And in our
Yeah.
case, you are a totally separate team, aren't you? You're actually a centre within a centre of excellence, shall we say, within the organisations of after sales specialists. All of you are actually specialists in that particular area, and you've been doing it for a number of years.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know the developers, of course, after so many years.
Sure, I do. Well, I've been working with developers, so I know how they used to. With the tip that I'm Spanish and I'm local, I find it quite easy to deal with them.
Isn't it fair to say what's important is that you snag the property prior to completion?
Well, it depends. There are some companies that allow that some companies are just asking that the clients do it when it arrives, the moment. But used to be a good filter for the client. What means that if I do the snagging previous to that they can find much less points at the snagging when checking the house.
Yeah, but you don't just do the snagging, you also manage the process for the client as well, don't you? I mean, so I know that from a most recent client where you delivered a brilliant service to one of my clients, when they arrived, their electricity was on, their water was on, there was nothing that they had to worry about from the perspective of delivering the property. They knew that they could physically move into it on the day that they arrived in Spain.
Yeah, that's the point, right? We do everything for them, so it will be easy to the clients. We prepare everything, we arrange even furnishing the houses, contracting wherever they need for the house, and we are checking the process of the building as well. So we can be really the local agent for the clients and can send them pictures when when find some interesting changes in the process, you know.
Because one thing I know is when I complete a sale, I have to write a very long document about what the changes are. So I have to give you, for example, if the wall's been moved or it's green tiles or the pool is 2 meters longer. You actually get quite a comprehensive write-up on the property, don't you, in terms of how it should be delivered?
Yeah, exactly. It's good to know from our side that how it should be. So we are taking care that everything goes smoothly, okay, everything goes fine, and the client finds what they expect to have.
But you're not the only man, though, are you? You're not the only person in the team. We have a team of 5 after sales people within Medland.
Yeah, we are all much independent and focusing on our market, really.
Yeah, because you're mainly, I mean, so I know that you do the majority of the UK clients, but I think everybody on the screen there speaks English. And I know that you've got 3 languages,
yeah, they do,
including French and Spanish and English.
Yeah.
I think Eduardo's got about 4 or 5 Scandinavian languages, isn't he? I think he speaks Danish and Swedish and
correct. Yeah.
Casper, Belgium, French,
Netherlands,
Dutch.
Yeah, and Bar for Belgium.
And Joel for France.
Correct.
So not only do we have the individual sales teams, as importantly, we have the individual after sales teams to look after the clients in their own languages. Because
exactly.
There's nothing worse, is there, corresponding with somebody via email or by phone or whatever, and not understanding the nuances of their particular language.
Yeah,
because it can mean something different. It can mean something totally different if you don't have a good working knowledge of the language.
Yeah, it makes it easier for the client, of course.
And this for us is obviously something that is a free service, isn't it? We don't charge anything to
No,
people
of course.
who do this, do we?
We're here just to help them, really.
And what we're doing here is we're very much helping the client. We're not on the developer's side. This is very much customer facing and very much designed to look after our customers. Again, reference wise and everything, Medland have a very, very good name for after sales. That's all I'd say at this point in time. So this is just the list, Alex, of some of the things that after sales get involved in. Okay, and it starts really from the time that I signed the contract, doesn't it? Literally, As soon as I've sold a property, the next contact person will be somebody in the after sales team. Because often you'll do things remotely. I know for a fact that if somebody can't get out to Spain, like in the pandemic at the moment, you'll assist them with buying the furniture. I know you go around the stores and you'll film the stores and you'll film the items and actually agree with them what goes into the property. Yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
What about lawyers? Because again, if you've got stage payments, how does a person in the UK check whether the builder's done what he's supposed to do?
Well, that's the point. It is not easy when buying a new build, pardon, when buying a new build house, it is correct that usually there is a long time till the house is ready to complete. So it's then when someone's coming and buy and go back to another country, it's not easy to control it or to be checking or even to trust in the process of the building site. So it's in that moment when we are really the local agent for the clients and we are updating them.
But it's all very well the builder saying that property is going to be ready in June if he's not there. The fact is, because of the things that you and your team do, you'll go to the property and you'll know in March, April, May, whether that property will be ready in June or not, won't you, from the progress that the builder's been making and what they're working on.
Yeah, well, we really do tell to the client the real situation, because the builder can say, okay, our plan, our schedule is blah, blah. But we go there to the site, we take pictures, we send to the client, and then they can know exactly how the real situation is.
I would say during the pandemic, I would imagine your services have been more important than ever. But we have been completing, haven't we? We have actually, during the pandemic, had happy clients who have, without coming to Spain, been signing for their properties.
Sure, that's correct. We have had many completions during the pandemic time.
Yeah, which again, with many other companies, because of course, if you're buying a resale property, you almost don't need after sales, do you? Because you tend to buy it with the furniture in. You buy as seen, don't you? You know, the furniture is included or not included. As I say, the air conditioning may or may not work if you haven't tested it.
Much different, really. Yeah, but in a new build property is quite necessary to have.
So we do our snagging. You follow up on the repairs for snagging as well, I would assume. You actually make sure if the builder's going to do repairs that they've actually done them.
Yeah, we sometimes do like a shield for the clients, getting from the builder that they do what they should by law. So yeah. We are helping always.
And then there's all the other things like internet and cars and alarm systems. And I also understand you're very good at recommending restaurants and bars because you're local.
Well, as I am local, I used to give some tips to my clients. Yes, why not? Not only to know the tourist places, more the local places where I used to go or where I should recommend, only the good ones, good paella. Not everyone knows how to do that kind of.
But again, I don't get often the chance to say thank you to the team down there because, again, for me, having the luxury of somebody that will, don't get me wrong, we don't go away from the clients. We stay in touch with the clients, as you know, as well, during the sales process. But to have the luxury of a team that's their job. That's what they do in life. That's exactly how they deliver the product is a real asset, which is very valuable to us as a company. And that asset has carried on during the pandemic and it's carried on employment-wise during the process. So again, thanks a lot for that service.
You're very welcome.
Okay, finishing off, what's next? Well, if you're looking at a property, visit our website. If you look at a particular area, visit our website. You can contact us via mail, via email, via WhatsApp, in all different ways. And if you're looking for an individual property search, we can help you. So if you're looking for a particular specification of property in a particular location, talk to us. We'll do the searches for you. We're doing more and more virtual tours, 360 tours at the moment. And of course, we still have the viewing trip option. As I say, this is a safe area as far as the pandemic, or safer, should I say, as far as the pandemic is concerned. If you can travel, we're still doing the viewing trips, and you will find some pretty good bargains. Well, not bargains is the wrong word, but if people are willing to come, then there are some interesting properties there. And we'll be continuing with the webinar series. There's one left in this series, which is the one on the 31st of October, which is focused around the Costa Calida, a very popular place, similar to the one that we did on Costa Blanca South. So they'll be looking at the Marmanoa, the properties in that area, again, working with one of the tourist companies, but not just presenting the properties, but talking about the benefits of the area. And then running through November, we'll be looking at relocation, we'll be looking at rentals and tax implications, we'll be looking at medical. There'll be a whole range of these webinars. But please, if we can have your feedback from the events, and as equally any other topics that you'd like us to cover. That's it from the panels today. We've run our time, so I appreciate you all for joining us today. It only leaves for me to say goodbye from you all, and the same for our panelists, to say goodbye to the viewers.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot. And thanks for all the help. Goodbye.
Bye.